I'm staring at the 10.36-pound skeletal frame resting on a heavy wooden desk. A hand gently pinches a thin titanium stick, balancing a microscopic diamond tip onto a ceramic disc. The operator pulls away slowly. I completely understand the appeal because the sheer physical weight exerts a magnetic pull, leaving you entirely captivated by the spinning polyurethane platter. Why does the room feel so heavy? Absolute breathless stillness dictates the operation. The enthusiast freezes, holding their breath while stretching a custom-cured rubber drive belt around a zirconium-toughened alumina spindle. It demands the terrifying reverence of a bomb squad technician. The rubber snaps perfectly, the tension breaks with an exhale, and the kinetic motion hums. But it starts somewhere simpler. I completely understand the appeal because we've all been tricked by this, buying a cheap Crosley cruiser purely for the visual aesthetic. Then the rapid escalation hits. Frantic late-night scrolling to ask Reddit why the needle skips drags the buyer into a multi-thousand-dollar hardware upgrade spiral. They're pulling out a credit card just to solve a skipping issue. The desire for a cool accessory morphs into an overpowering need for audio perfection. The operator clears an entire desk. The spiral takes hold. I'm not gonna lie, it looks incredible, and the pure euphoria of unboxing that $16,995 Riga Naya hits hard. The buyer traces the aerospace-grade TanCast 8 polyurethane foam core, realizing they now operate a true vibration measuring machine. Locking the carbon fiber chassis into place fuels a thrilling fantasy of extracting hidden microscopic details. The collector imagines an unparalleled soundstage of total acoustic superiority. It's a beautiful lie, but the highly anticipated physical ritual begins. The user slices open the shrink wrap. The collector lowers the Apillion 2 moving coil cartridge onto the factory-sealed disc, chasing visceral chill bumps documented on internet forums. A soft, warm crackle echoes. The physical weight transforms a standard living room into a master recording studio. The room breathes music. And then the math hits. A $16,995 turntable with a titanium vertical bearing plays a $40 mass-produced polyvinyl chloride disc, while a $10 Spotify subscription beams flawless digital audio without tracking force calibration. The operator ignores the smartphone sitting right there. Look, I get it. Adjusting the counterweight replaces pressing play. They proudly display the receipt, rejecting digital convenience for tactile reality. Watch the tone arm track toward the center label. It's $5,665 spent per inch of lateral needle movement just to drag a rock across a grooved surface. Mesmerized by the mechanical effort, the consumer feels profound purpose. They spend a fortune on friction. The digital file is free.
But the private obsession mutates into public hostility. I'm scrolling through toxic online forums. A grown adult is furiously sweating over a keyboard asking if a Victrola suitcase player ruins records just to attack teenagers for playing pop music. It's a pathetic tantrum protecting a massive investment, weaponizing microscopic math to invalidate a child. The collector defends a spinning piece of shit. How does the enthusiast establish dominance in person? By creating a hostage situation. The consumer locks the front door, forcing a friend to play a record on the high-end system, asking how much a suitcase player damages vinyl. They feign theatrical heartbreak. The operator claims the highs lack sparkle solely because the friend previously used a cheap player. The friendship slowly dies. Then comes the impenetrable verbal armor. The buyer points aggressively at the platter to deliver a condescending lecture on inner groove distortion. The music sounds worse at the end of the disc because the rock runs out of room to wiggle. Ignoring the irony, the owner nods. It's the absurdity of paying a premium price for a signal that actively turns to dog shit. The agonizing mathematical lengths are insane. The operator sweats under a desk lamp, squinting at a paper grid to perfect the ball word cartridge alignment, holding breath to make a microscopic adjustment, using a math protractor to make sure the needle sits straight so the singer does not sound like a broken robot. It's an adult treating a toy like a scientific instrument. Constant physical paranoia is required. The enthusiast lowers the tone arm onto a microscopic digital scale to obsessively measure the stylus tracking force. Just obsessively measuring how hard the stiff metal shaft pushes down on the plastic so it doesn't prematurely slip out. The owner locks the tone arm back. It's a buyer weighing a needle like a smuggler measuring precious metals. The private obsession becomes a public social nightmare. Inviting friends over for drinks, they're asking who has the authority to touch the turntable and flip the record. Treating this delicate bullshit like a classified Pentagon server, the gatekeeper physically swats hands away. The host glares at a guest pointing at a sleeve, terrified a single fingerprint triggers catastrophic failure. Nobody is having fun. Here's the climax of social torture. The collector forces dinner guests to sit in agonizing silence, explaining that a partner and they wanted an organization system that visitors can pick from. Meanwhile, the operator performs a 5-minute hazmat cleaning ritual with a carbon fiber brush, treating a speck of dust like a goddamn landmine. The trapped audience prays for a cheap Bluetooth speaker. Is this actually about the music?
No, it is about the marketing. The consumer stares blankly at a targeted advertisement on a phone, completely mesmerized by the technical specifications. Brands weaponize aerospace jargon to sell the skeletal plinth. Terms like graphene-impregnated carbon fiber and foam cores convince a standard office worker the machine is a precision scientific instrument. Yeah, totally normal behavior, just pulling out a credit card to fund the delusion. Spinning a plastic disc is incredibly primitive, but the gear projects a desperate intellectual dominance over casual listeners. The target buys a corporate story, not a stereo. How does a tiny needle justify a massive financial barrier? It's a zero-tolerance engineering narrative. The brand uses corporate bait like hand-wound micro-crosses and boron rod cantilevers to frame this needle as a micro-engineering marvel, providing a physical shield of financial superiority. The owner treats the component like a holy relic. This ensures the audio cosplay remains too expensive for bullied teenagers. The exclusionary price tag is the actual product. Spare me the garbage, because then comes the first pathetic excuse to justify bleeding cash. The collector types investment for future resale value defense online. But the brutal reality is just hoarding heavy warping plastic discs for a mythical buyer. The consumer slides another sealed record onto a buckling shelf. The owner runs an unpaid climate-controlled storage facility, mistaking volume for value. The second delusion defends the absurd price tag. Bro is fighting for his life right now, closing both eyes and forcing a smile. The buyer deploys the analog warmth defense, but the reality is brutal, paying a massive barrier to experience physical friction, dust popping, and low-level harmonic distortion. The consumer winces at a loud pop, desperately convincing a guest the static is intentional. Corporate gaslighting rebranded an inferior, degrading audio signal as a luxury feature. They bought the fucking static. Look past the corporate excuses to the overarching psychological reality. Big brain moves only, standing alone, surrounded by towering vinyl stacks. The buyer doesn't purchase the skeletal titanium apparatus to hear music better. The operator stares blankly at the spinning platter until heavy silence fills the room. The gear functions entirely as a psychological barricade. This heavy financial investment is a physical shield against social judgment. The host meticulously arranges the gear to ensure it's seen first. The consumer masks a lack of musical talent by weaponizing disposable income, simulating the aesthetic of a master craftsman. The owner forces visitors to watch a boron rod drop onto a spinning disc. This projects dominance over anyone pressing play on a glass screen. It is just adult fucking dress-up.
But there's a quiet, devastating isolation created by this machinery. The host locks the front door, forcing dinner guests to sit in absolute, terrified silence to appreciate the analog warmth. It's an acoustic hostage situation. Trapped visitors silently beg for a cheap Bluetooth speaker. The tragic irony is the device meant to bring people together actively pushes them away. This is just sad to watch as the owner ignores the tension and sits entirely alone in a crowded room. Then there's the massive theft of time. The collector cancels weekend plans to reorganize shelves. Wasting hundreds of hours hunched over a desk, the operator scrubs microscopic dust off a diamond needle and flips a heavy disc every 20 minutes. They squint under a harsh lamp, turning the simple act of hearing a song into an unpaid janitorial shift. The buyer finds hollow comfort in repetitive cleaning, collapsing exhausted. What happens when the music stops playing? The crushing, silent anxiety remains. The enthusiast stares at the ceiling, terrified a slight temperature shift will warp heavy plastic discs. The owner obsessively checks the digital thermostat and adjusts the blinds. They pace the floor, reducing the living space to a high-stress, climate-controlled bunker. Paying a premium price buys permanent anxiety. The hobby just becomes a bleak, self-imposed prison. Zoom out to the macro-societal condition driving this desperate behavior. The consumer looks out the window at a fast-paced, digital world. The buyer isn't actually obsessed with audio fidelity. They're just terrified of the modern void. You can literally see the regret in his eyes, clutching a heavy vinyl record like a life raft, tracing the physical grooves just to prove it exists. The collector holds the cardboard sleeve tightly against the chest, desperate to feel grounded. We fetishize the crushing inconvenience of heavy, obsolete analog technology because our modern digital lives feel entirely weightless, disposable, and devoid of any fucking permanence. It requires a strict financial intervention to stop the bleeding. The user opens a laptop. A strict zero-based budgeting software forces the consumer to confront the brutal math of the audio cosplay, stopping the financial hemorrhage of buying overpriced colored plastic. Watching red numbers turn green, the buyer cancels a pre-order and closes the tab on a titanium stick. They exhale a shaky breath of relief, finally looking at a spreadsheet. Buy the $10 digital streaming subscription. Just put the credit card down and walk away, because a heavy physical disc won't cure the existential dread of a weightless modern life. Infinite streaming delivers flawless audio for the price of a single cocktail. This frees you from babysitting a spinning rock.